Sales tax can be one of the trickiest components of running a business. First of all, it's because not everyone has to collect sales tax, and for those who do, you may or may not have to collect it for everything you sell. Some states do not collect sales tax at all. Many states do not collect sales tax on certain types of items, like groceries and services. In the days of traditional brick and mortar stores, it was easy to figure out what sales taxes you needed to collect. It was based on where your store was physically located. These days, you may have different physical locations and sell products to many states. Do you pay sales tax in your own state or to the state to which you're shipping a product? What about internet sales made from your website or electronically? Are they subject to sales tax? And if so, whose sales tax? If you then layer on top of that the fact that there's not only state sales tax, but often county and any other variety of local jurisdictions, sales tax can really be one of the more complicated elements to set up and collect correctly. If you need to address sales tax simply from the standpoint that you need to collect it, regardless of how many or how it's calculated, you at least have a straightforward environment in which to work with it in QuickBooks. In order to work with sales tax, what you need to know is how to enable the sales tax features, how to create sales tax codes, how to create sales tax items, how to apply the codes and items, how to generate sales tax reports, and of course, how to pay those sales tax liabilities. The application and collection of sales tax can be complicated, but why you need to know it is very simple. Sales tax is complicated. There is no consistency. It depends on where you live, what business you're in, what products and services you have, and how far your reach is to your market. Sales tax liability calculations are often the most common errors that we find in anything that happens in a business. It's fairly straightforward to calculate income and expenses. Sales tax can really be a problem, especially with large businesses and complicated markets. That's why anytime we can have automation help us, it's going to help us not only save time and energy, but also avoid errors and the resulting penalties for not collecting or paying in a correct and timely manner. That's why you must know how to accurately set up sales tax. So the first question may be, what exactly is sales tax? It's a tax imposed by a government at the point of sale on some retail goods and services. The government could be local, could be state, could be county, and the point of sale is, of course, where you do your business, whether it be a website or a cash register. We can only speak in generalities, but wholesale items or goods for resale are usually exempt from sales tax. Otherwise, they'd be taxed twice, once when you bought it and once when you sold it. Some services may also be exempt. Other classes of items are often exempt as well, including things like groceries in some states and usually medical supplies. Just as an example, states like Delaware, Hawaii, and Washington tax a large number of services, while other states, such as Alaska, Virginia, and New Hampshire, tax very few services. If you like to put a label on things, then we can say that sales tax is ad valorem, which means according to value. In other words, it's not a set amount. It's not $3 or $5 or 22 cents. It's a percentage of the total sale of taxable items. Depending on where you live and where you do business, you may be subjected to any variety of state, county, and/or local or jurisdictional sales taxes. At the current time, the United States does not have a federal sales tax, although it's always rumored and put out there, and someday it may happen. So now that you know a little bit about what sales tax is, the next question is, what do you need to do about it? Well, there are several things that you can do. First of all, check your local regulations. They're going to be different for every place, for every company, and for every type of business. You're probably going to need to apply for a sales permit. It may be illegal to do business without one. That again depends on where your business is located as well as the type of business that you're in. Where it then starts to get complicated is that you then have to go ahead and check the requirements for each location in which you do business. And that could be even more complex if you work online and not only with physical locations. If you work online, then you also have to check for all states to which you sell items online to see what their regulations are. One of the most important, of course, is to know when, where, and how to file and remit payment. This can be different for every single sales tax that you have to collect. so you might be doing a lot of filing and a lot of payments. Above all else, as we say when we're always working with QuickBooks, consult with your accountant or your local tax authority. They can give you advice on how to best proceed. And a couple more things that you may not want to forget is that you may be required to make an advanced deposit on your sales tax. I know it may not seem fair, but this is a requirement that you will be told about by your taxing authority. Now, the good news is an insurance company may provide something called a surety bond in lieu of a deposit. A surety bond is simply a promise that the insurance company will pay the tax amount if you fail. Surety bonds are often used when a contractor is hired, so the person hiring them is guaranteed the work will be done if the original contractor fails to complete the job. So they're not just for sales tax, but they can be used if an advance deposit is required in your circumstance. Now, another piece of good news is that you may be able to defer payment on goods for resale. If you have an exemption permit, which is separate from a seller's permit, you may be able to be exempt from paying sales tax on items that you will ultimately resell. So we think we've got it all figured out. Well, let's throw a couple more things into the mix. So you know you can get into trouble if you don't collect or pay your tax liabilities on time. But did you know that you can also get into trouble for collecting them incorrectly too? If we sell to remote locations, we may have never even heard of this, but it's important to correctly calculate our tax liability and also to make sure customers don't get annoyed that they were charged sales tax inappropriately. The sales tax holiday is a period of time when consumers do not have to pay normally applicable sales tax on particular goods and services. There are times when this obviously makes sense, such as part of Louisiana's hurricane preparedness program, where homeowners do not have to pay sales tax in order to prepare for a hurricane. It also reaches into some other areas that you may or may not have ever considered, like school supplies in New Mexico. The challenge with sales tax holidays is that due to their very nature, they are unpredictable and difficult to account for, especially in areas where you do not live or are not aware of current situations. These sales tax holidays differ based on many different variables, including the type of goods, the time of year, and are even offered over different periods of time, such as a few days to possibly several weeks. Unfortunately, this is one of the many areas where it seems virtually impossible to keep track of every possible variable. Some of the states that have or have had sales tax holidays include Arkansas, Connecticut, Georgia, Iowa, Louisiana, Maryland, Mississippi, Missouri, New Mexico, North Carolina, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, and Virginia. As I said, that is a lot to remember. If you are small and a localized company, you probably live in the community in which you also sell product and would probably be aware of these types of holidays. If you're a bigger business with a broader market, you may not be. It's something you just have to be aware of, and the best advice we can give is just do your best. Now, when it comes to something called use tax, your best is not good enough, and you should be aware of exactly what the requirements are. Your company may be subject to a use tax, and that's a tax on tangible personal property items that have not otherwise been subject to tax. Well, what does that mean? It means things like items you or your business bought without paying sales tax. For example, maybe you bought it from another state that didn't require you, or maybe you bought it online. A really good example is that this tax is due on items that were taken out of inventory that tax was not paid on because it was supposed to be resold. You better be sure that the local taxing authorities want their tax, and that's where this tax comes from. Most importantly, the responsibility is on the consumer. That is you. The best thing that you can ever do is review your sales tax settings, what needs to be collected, and the regulations for all the different jurisdictions in which you sell periodically. This is really important when you sell into a new location, when you begin selling online, when you start selling new products or services. You need to know your nexus. The nexus is just the connection between a business, that's you, and a taxing jurisdiction that requires sales tax collections. The only way to understand it is every one of those individual relationships, and that's where it gets more complicated. Scheduling regular reviews, either by yourself or a tax professional, will be greatly beneficial in making sure you comply with all of the requirements. In the past couple of years, there have been more than 24 states that have considered modifying how and for what they collect sales tax. Because of that, it's kind of a moving target. Sales tax can be one of the most difficult areas of your business to manage and manage correctly. And often, it not only deserves professional attention, but requires it. Setting up sales tax in QuickBooks is not the difficult part. It's keeping current with all of the other variables that may require professional assistance.